All team, give it everything you got.
It's time to fangirl flail with Fangirls Going Rogue.
Count me in. I don't think there's anything more important in the Star Wars universe than the fans.
News, discussion, and commentary from the female point of view.
You call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
With your hosts, Teresa Delgado, Tricia Barr, and Sarah Woloski.
Boy, am I glad to hear your voice.
Strap in, because this is where the fun begins.
I like the sound of that.
Hey everybody, and you are listening to episode 39 of Fangirls Going Rogue. I am Teresa Delgado, one of your co-hosts, and with me are my two fangirl best friends, Tricia Barr from Fangirl Blog. How's it going? Are you ready to go, Rogue?
Hey. I feel like I went into the wrong podcast. Sorry, Sarah.
I was like, what? This isn't Skywalking Through Neverland.
Where we say, hey, and then we were watching Moana, and all of a sudden, hey, there's a character named Hey, and we're like, what? What's going on?
That's why it's been on my brain, because the whole time the fourth wall just didn't work. Every time they're like, hey, I'm like, where's Richard? Where's Sarah? I'm so confused. Hey, oh, it's a chicken.
Wait, the chicken's name is Hey. I haven't seen it yet, so.
Yes. Okay, well, first of all, wait, can you introduce me, Teresa, so I can talk?
Oh, yeah. Well, you're already talking.
Yeah, I know.
My other fangirl best friend, who is here to tell us all about Hey the chicken, Sarah Woloski.
That's right, who is voiced by Alan Tudyk, which is fun. I know, it comes back later, but yeah. So I was watching Moana El Capitan, and, you know, like we said, Hey was said throughout the movie. We're like, okay, how is this spelled? Well, luckily, when you're at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood, you walk downstairs and you go out into what? A gift shop. So we went in there and there was a bunch of Hey chickens, and it's spelled Heihei. 2 words. It's interesting.
See, I wouldn't pronounce that Hey.
Well, no, but
I'd pronounce that Hi.
I know. But yeah, so that's pretty funny. That's funny that you were thinking of us, Tricia.
It was. Every time he came up, I'm like, oh, I'm so confused.
Well, ladies, we have some awesome news. Well, you already know what it is, but just for our listeners, in case they missed it, we actually made an appearance in the New York Times, online and in print. So that is super cool. Tricia, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about our New York Times appearance?
That's like the craziest thing ever, right? We got an email asking from the author, Amanda Hess, to talk to us, and we all got on, and I think, was it like an hour we talked to her?
It was definitely an hour. I think it was like an hour, 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, she wasn't just a reporter doing a story. This is something, and if you look at her resume, this is something she's passionate about fandoms and about fans, you know, making a difference and changing things. She's an award-winning author. And I just thought, you know, the online thing was really cool. I didn't ever think it was going to be in print.
Right.
Did you guys think it was good? Because I just never went there. I don't know why.
No, well, I know it came out November 3rd online, right? And so we were all sharing on social media and reading it and being like, wow, this is a really good article. And it mentioned a bunch of our podcasting friends, all of our, female friends in podcasting and blogging. And then that Sunday, which was about 4 days later, all of a sudden I saw some tweets with like pictures of the article in the New York Times Sunday newspaper. Like, how awesome is that?
This is very cool. And luckily I was able to get my hands on like 3 or 4 copies. Well, I wasn't. Man, my mom's going to be mad at me when she hears that. My mom got copies she picked up several copies because that's what mom does. I think she went at like 11 o'clock at night and she's like, you know what? I want some of these. And I don't know where she went, but she went and bought a bunch.
Aww.
So it's very cool. It's very cool. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, it's all about females in fandom, and it's a really awesome article. It mentions us and a lot of other people that we podcast and blog with, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and if you want to read it, you know what I found fun? If you go to the New York Times website and you type in the search bar Fangirls Going Rogue, it pops right up.
Very cool. Very cool. So before we really jump into the show, I don't know if you guys caught this. Wink, wink. I know you did. But we want to give a big shout out, hooray, for two of our friends that are now officially part of Star Wars canon, Matt Martin and Andy Gutierrez from Lucasfilm, because they are characters in Star Wars Rebels, which I think is really, really cool.
Whoa, wait a minute. I think this passed me by in all this remodeling we've been doing. What happened?
So in the episode Iron Squadron, there's a group of little kids. I say little, they're teenagers. There's a group of 3, and Matt Martin and Andy Gutierrez are the inspiration for 2 of the characters who are conveniently named Mart Matin and Gutierrez.
Aww.
It was pretty cool. So congratulations, guys. I want to be Star Wars canon.
It was a big week for StarWars.com. It was also their 20th anniversary. If people want to go read about the history of StarWars.com, and kind of crazy how unprecedented it was that they had the webcam during the prequel trilogy, and you could see things that were happening, and you just don't get to do that even anymore. How kind of cutting edge Star Wars was in the earliest internet days.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, StarWars.com and Matt Martin and Andy Gutierrez.
All right, guys. So I wanted to bring up a couple of little things for our collecting corner. Not too much because we have so much other stuff to cover. But StarWars.com's YouTube channel did just release an ad for this first topic on their YouTube channel about the Fashion for Change Force for Change initiative. You can go to your local Target store, and there's a selection of shirts that are inspired by Rogue One and even designed by Gareth Edwards and some of the cast and crew from Rogue One. And it's a collaboration with UNICEF, the Force for Change stuff. And you can buy one of these shirts, and it helps support the whole cause. And make sure you take a picture of yourself in your shirt with hashtag Fashion for Change and also hashtag Force for Change. And there's girl cut shirts and men's cut shirts, and I got the red one. It's the only red shirt, and it says Go Rogue on it. It's pretty cool. And of course I got it because of Fangirls Going Rogue. So I was like, yes, very cool. And I wear a small. I don't know if that helps anybody, but for those of you who have met me in person, I wear a small. There are extra smalls, but the extra small was going to be way too small on me. So and even the small, I was like, well, it's a little bit snug, but makes the girls look good. So I'm going to buy this one.
So they run small. I see.
They do run a little small.
I have definitely, there's some really cute ones. So I'm going to have to pick. I haven't gotten to the picking part. There's not, and some of them are designed by not people from Star Wars, but fans too. So I saw Olivia Munn did one. And so that was kind of cool. So,
wow.
Yeah. I'm not sure who designed the one I picked. I'd love to find out though. But the last thing for this just short little collecting corner is that I don't know if you guys have noticed if you've been to the stores, but there is a lot of Rogue One merchandise on toy shelves right now, which is very different from this time last year, right before The Force Awakens, where there was none. And there's lots of Jyn Erso available. And I'm just kind of wondering, in y'all's opinion, do you think this is a sign of that this movie may be at a higher age level to where the kids aren't interested? Or is it because they don't know these characters yet?
I've heard, honestly, from a lot of people from different podcasts and things that a lot of people are holding out because they don't know the characters yet. They don't know what to expect, which is interesting because even with The Force Awakens, like, we didn't know who Kylo Ren was. We didn't know who Rey was either, but we knew she was the main character. So I think a lot of the hesitancy is that just that fact. No one knows who these characters are quite yet, and who do we put our trust in and who's not going to die.
Well,
and who
they're
do we
all
love?
gonna die.
Yeah.
I still think there's a lot of the not people who are just the casual fans who would buy up. I mean, the really hardcore fans are going to go buy their stuff. I've seen people take pictures and they have like 800 gazillion Rogue One things. And those people are going to go buy. It's the people who are just out there in the normal group that's going to go see the movie, but they don't know a lot about it. So they don't know what this is. You know, they're like, well, where's Rey? Where's Kylo? I still get people asking me that. I had someone come by the office today who's like, I heard there's a Rogue One movie coming out or something. And it's like Star Wars. And when is it? Do I have to know the prequel trilogies? And I'm like, no, you don't really need to know anything because it would run right up into New Hope. So there's still a lot of people who just don't know what the movie is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's a lot of it. I also think that these characters they don't look like Star Wars. They look like normal people, you know, and in a normal sci-fi movie, they don't look like Star Wars characters, because when you have Kylo Ren, who's in the hood and the mask and all the stuff, you're like, oh, that's Star Wars. Or you have
he's got
Rey
a lightsaber too.
Yeah, and you have Rey in her sort of tan, crossed in the front outfit, and everything kind of looks like a Jedi outfit. You know, it's familiar imagery. I can't wait to start going to the stores after the movie comes out just to see if now, once the movies come out, that people start buying stuff. And I'm sure they will, but it's not a whole lot of time between the movie releasing and Christmas, so I guess we'll see. Mad rush to the toy aisle, maybe.
Well, they're certainly have preempted the Where's Jin.
Yep.
Yes, they did.
I mean, that's really awesome that they got past it, that they know that was an issue, that they don't want to deal with that. The only problem is that's all we've got is Jin. You know, we don't have Mos Mothma or any of the other. They had to put more Reys, I think, and we have a Leia from Rebels. So we got Sabine. So we got some different action figures, but we didn't get any other Rogue One. So we'll see how the conversation goes. But yeah, they definitely were like, we're not going to see the hashtag Where's Jin. That was like on Disney's goal list.
Yes.
Well, and Tricia, you actually shared with us Sarah Gaidos. She's a comic book editor for IDW, and she put a tweet out there that you shared with us that it says, at the Disney Licensing Summit, and the message, again, is if you aren't making product for a diverse and female audience, you will lose out. And so there it is again. Make sure you're doing it, people.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Yay, go.
Yeah.
We have money.
All right, so let's jump into our news. First things first, let's talk about Emilia Clarke. Who is Emilia Clarke, may you say? Well, she's from Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones! Woohoo! She's the mother of dragons. Daenerys Targaryen.
Wow.
Yeah, she's the blonde who's actually brunette. So when she's in anything else, nobody realizes it's her.
Oh, and we saw her
from Terminator Genesis.
Yeah, we saw her on Ellen once, and she was brunette, and we're like, wait, who? Like, that's Daenerys? Like, yeah, it was really weird. So, but what I'm wondering is, in the Han Solo movie, will she be brunette? Will she be her blonde? Okay, because I know, Tricia, you're always harping on there needs to be 50% women in Star Wars, but damn it, there are no blonde women in Star Wars. I can't relate.
I hear ya. No, I mean, she could have pink hair. She could have purple hair. She could have red hair.
Yeah, that's
she could have.
She could have no hair.
Just not brunette. Damn it.
I know. I actually tweeted that I felt guilty that there was another white brunette actress in Star Wars, because it seems like that's the go-to I get. And then that leads to the inevitable, well, who is she related to? Is she related to Princess Leia? Is she related to Padme? Is she related to, is she related to Rey? Because, I mean, they've been waving off the is Jin related to Rey thing for a while now. And even like on Kelly Live, when she wanted to ask Felicity Jones, are you related to Rey? That was the question. And poor Felicity's like, okay, I went to training for this answer.
Well, Well, I think it's interesting. I don't have a problem with Emilia Clarke at all being cast in this role. I trust Lucasfilm and the people that they decide to use. But there has been some upheaval, not just because of the hair color, but because apparently there were rumored 3 women of color that auditioned for the same role, and we now have another white British brunette as a lead. We don't know what character she's playing, and I think that they probably cast it for that character. We also we know nothing about it, so I hesitate to jump to any conclusions, but there are people that are kind of upset about it. But then I'd say most people really like her from Game of Thrones, and a lot of people are just behind Lucasfilm and they trust what they're doing. We also don't know how diverse the rest of the cast of this film is going to be, so I don't know. I'll say what I said on, let's see, which podcast? Oh, Star Wars Report. I said it there. And I also said it on Ion Cannon. I like pretty girls in Star Wars, and she's pretty.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's really hard to, I was excited to hope, because when they talked about it early on, there were 3 women of color who were talked about, and then there was an inevitable, is it the female character from the comics, which I didn't feel like that was who it was going to be. And things have to happen. There's to be chemistry casting, and there has to be the right person. I understand that. I remember a long time ago talking to someone because I was very frustrated about the lack of female authors in Star Wars. This was years ago, and I heard the feedback, well, we always talk about it, about having a female author, and it never seems to happen. So I absolutely understand the emotions that people go through when the announcement came up, and they're like, because there were a lot of people who were really excited about the possibility of different actresses that were testing for the role. And I'm pretty certain that the trades that reported on different actresses were right, that they're not, there's agents or whatever that talk, they want to throw names out to get names, and people like, oh, I'd like to have that actress. So, but it depends. It depends on a lot of things, what they do with the character, what they do with diversity and the rest of the cast. There's a lot of other things going on, but I certainly feel for people who are very, who are concerned. And I think as a longtime fan talking about advocating, that we have to respect their voice and just understand where their feelings are coming from, and hope and keep letting them talk about it. That's the most important thing.
Right. And you know what, Teresa, you had posted on our Fangirls Going Rogue Facebook page a bunch of questions regarding, one of them about how do you feel about the casting of Emilia Clarke? And we had some responses here. So can I read some of these?
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Okay. So Ross Brown, he wrote, I'm still waiting on the casting of a woman of color in a major role, but I have no real qualms with Clarke's casting. So I thought that was an interesting response. And Patty Hammond, she wrote, I am not familiar with her work, so I do not have an opinion other than it is great to see more female characters in Star Wars. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Thought that was cute. And then Michael Faulkner kind of does the general opinion that we've been hearing, which is Emilia Clarke is a fine actress. I would like to see more diversity in the lead casting choices, but I'm happy to see more women in active lead roles. Which, do we know if this is a lead role?
Yes, that was the StarWars.com. And yeah, so
Perfect.
she's an important role, but you never know. Maybe she's like the bad guy. Maybe there's another. I mean, that's like the crazy thing, because remember when they announced Adam Driver, the presumption is, people were already thinking he's a villain, but we don't have any presumption of what she is. We don't know anything. And I'm still saying, after Kathleen Kennedy talked a little bit about the Han Solo movie in her Rogue One press walkabout that she's been doing, that she brought up Western and heist. And so my homework from last week applies even more, that you should watch Silverado.
Oh,
that's right.
Yeah.
That was homework.
Homework. So I'm repeating to people that the Silverado is probably a very good clue to what we might see in the Han Solo movie. And one exciting thing about representation behind the camera is that they hired the cinematographer from the movie Arrival which is out now, which is awesome. Go see it. And that's Bradford Young. And he is a very talented Black cinematographer. So that's an exciting thing to see for the Han Solo movie. So we should definitely applaud that they're doing diversity behind the camera too.
Nice.
Absolutely. Well, the winter movie season is upon us for sure, especially with Moana coming out and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Also movies like Arrival and some of the other things that are coming out. So let's talk about this really quick and what we see happening with Disney. And we're just talking about Moana for a second because it helps sort of back all of this up. We've seen a shift for diversity with Disney with this one movie. And I have to point it out with this one. It's great. And we've seen Elena of Avalor on TV, and that show is also great. But I'm curious because Disney plans their films so far out in advance, and they do one thing like this really well, but they already have everything planned out so far in advance that we probably won't see another diversity numbered animated film for a while. But it is topping the box office, which should tell Disney something that maybe they should take a look at what their plans are. So for 2016, this is one of the really cool things. The box office actually topped $10 billion for 2016 in the United States. The previous record for topping $10 billion was actually set in 2013. So it's been like 3 years. And even with The Force Awakens in 2015, it did go over, but The Force Awakens helped that, but it was sort of at the end of it. So 2015's was $11.12 billion, but they credit that to The Force Awakens.
One movie.
But it brings up an interesting point about Rogue One, which right now it's currently on pace to do anywhere from about 130 million to go as high as 150 million just based off of its opening ticket sales was the predictions.
Wow. Is that projected for the first opening weekend, that 130
yes.
to 150 million? Okay.
That was the predictions. But, once again, we have a Star Wars movie that has crashed the internet when it's time to buy tickets. That's 2 years in a row, people. Would make it the second highest December debut of all time if it does that, if it reaches 130 million.
Okay.
So this was one of the questions that I asked our listeners on our Facebook page was, when are you seeing Rogue One and when did you get your tickets? Because I felt like this was really important with the internet crashing again when it came to a Star Wars movie. And even Rogue One, I didn't think it was going to be that popular. Did y'all, as far as like crashing the internet again?
Honestly, anything with Star Wars has been getting more and more popular. Yep. Like the Star Wars Celebration conventions have been getting more and more crowded. It's becoming a fandom that is not necessarily saturation point, but like there are a lot of people who are Star Wars fans, and that's awesome. Welcome you guys. But it is causing issues like this, and I think we're just gonna see that from the diehard Star Wars fans who are all trying to go on the internet at once.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I was looking, and we have people like Sue on our Facebook page. She says she hasn't even purchased her ticket yet, but she's planning on going sometime that weekend. She said, I'll probably purchase at the theater. However, I might be tempted by the dark side and go opening night if I have time. So what I've seen from my theaters is that they're pretty much sold out for Thursday night and Friday night. So if you haven't bought your tickets yet, getting in on Thursday or Friday night might be really hard. But there were people, like a lot of people are going on the 15th around 7 o'clock, which is the same time I'm going. I saw a lot of people also bought off of Fandango. I luckily did not have much of a problem buying my tickets because I'm going to the Alamo Draft House here in Austin, and I just go through their website. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have to really deal with as much of the crash. But Patty Hammond is going December 15th. Michael Faulkner is actually waiting to go until Sunday afternoon of opening weekend.
Okay.
So let's see. Chickafant is going to go on the 15th. So my other question is, are you guys going to see it in 2D or in 3D?
Oh, I'm going to see it in 3D laser IMAX opening night at TCL Chinese Theater IMAX with liningup.net, the charity. So we're going to do the same thing we did last year, Richard and I. And also, Brian Sims on our Facebook page here has written Opening Night in Hollywood, Lining Up Charity. So he's going to be there too. So we'll see him. Honestly, if you can get to the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, I know not all of you are here, it is an amazing experience. That was bar none my favorite place to watch The Force Awakens. Like, there's one moment in that film when you're watching in 3D where there's this shot of a Star Destroyer, just gigantic, like right in front of your face if you're watching it in 3D. And in that theater in particular, everyone in the theater gasped because it was just so awesome. So I recommend that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the sound
Trisha, what about
just
you?
Excellent.
3D becomes the option simply because that's the first theater that had a 7:00 showing. So, so I don't necessarily have a preferred format, and sometimes the 3D bothers my eyes because I'm more and more trouble. But I was gonna be in the first theater, so that was kind of how I picked it. It wasn't because of preference. I'll give you more money, Star Wars. Okay. The interesting thing is really what's the tail going to do? I don't think they're going to have a big opening weekend. I think people are going to go. Their kids are going to want to go. People are going to take their kids. The theater is going to be full. What happens beyond that? What's the word of mouth, and how many people go back how many times did you guys go to the theater for The Force Awakens?
I think 7.
Yeah. So how many times do we get to people like us? Because the tail is what really makes them go over those crazy numbers that you were talking about, Teresa. So yeah. How many times do we go? How in love are we with the Star Wars movie? Like, are we in love with it that we want to keep going again and again? And I think, Sarah, actually the 3D might be really cool just because of what the space battles. We're seeing more and more shots of it because they probably are getting the special effects finally to the point where it's done. And so I think that those X-Wings and all that are going to be awesome in 3D. So that's kind of what I'm excited for. And probably the first time everything's just going to go, we're going to be like the way we were in The Force Awakens. I have to go see it again because that just blew my mind. So,
Well, it'll be interesting because this kind of continues into my next question I had on our Facebook page. What was your favorite movie of 2016? And that's asking, prior to Rogue One coming out, there was a reason for it. Because if you have a movie that you saw multiple times this year, it's going to be interesting to see how Rogue One stacks up as the kind of movie you'll go see multiple times. I knew with The Force Awakens I would see it multiple times. I just had a feeling. This one, I don't know. I've seen Fantastic Beasts twice. I saw it twice within 4 days. So Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is going to be lit. That's my mark to hit for movies of 2016. And so we'll see if Rogue One does that for me. But just to kind of see like what other people are thinking, we have Dante DeMille from our Facebook page is saying Captain America Civil War. Joe Martin says Suicide Squad. Joe Pulford says Deadpool. So most people's favorite films are these genre films. So it'll be interesting how Rogue One stacks up to those. Brian Sims said Deadpool was very well done and funny. The Jungle Book was also awesome, and Fantastic Beasts. So I don't know, guys. We'll see. We'll see how many people decide to go back. But, I think it's not going to do Force Awakens business. I just know it's not, which would be sad. But
well, I mean, nothing is. You have 10 years of pent up, Star Wars fans, and then that completely amazing marketing campaign that got everyone to want to see this movie. Like, yeah, there's just nothing like that.
No, there's not.
We were like Finn at the trough for like the half a boar. We're just like, just give it to him. I don't care.
Oh my God. When am I going to see this film? Yes.
I just went back a couple of times just because I wanted to see everybody else's reaction to the movie at times. That was fun. Even after, I think I took my parents like a month in, and there were still people who hadn't seen it who had really cool reactions to the Millennium Falcon showing up, and even to who they didn't know that what was going to happen to Han Solo. I'm like, dude, wow, you got 4 weeks in and you don't know what happened.
Wow.
That's really good.
They were unplugged.
So with Rogue One's predictions of what it will do opening weekend, it puts it right in between Star Wars The Force Awakens and Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith for opening weekend. Now, you'd have to adjust 2005's numbers for inflation, but non-adjusted opening weekend for Revenge of the Sith, can't talk. Revenge of the Sith was $108.4 million, and The Force Awakens was $247.96 million. So as long as it hits right there, I think
it'll be fine.
Wow.
It'll be fine.
That's insane. Go Force Awakens. I had such fun reading the Forbes.com Sam Mendelsohn's articles. He wrote an article every day for like a month about the Force Awakens numbers. It was so intriguing.
That was the best, waking up and being like, The Force Awakens has broken another record. I'm like, oh, did we now?
Yep.
You're welcome.
I know, right? It's our movie.
Well, we do end up partly owning it in a way. So
definitely.
It's true. It's very true. And there has been some Oscar buzz for visual effects with Disney and Star Wars for this coming Oscars with Jungle Book, Rogue One, and Doctor Strange. So I'm excited to see if we make it into visual effects categories with this movie. I think people really think it will, which it should, because it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I may not win. There's such great contenders this year between Jungle Book and Doctor Strange and, Fantastic Beasts, like crazy.
Yep. So Kathleen Kennedy has been in the news lately, and actually just today too. She had some stuff to say today also. So Tricia, since you are a resident Kathleen Kennedy expert, yes, I'm naming you that. I don't know if you are, but I'm going to make you the Kathleen Kennedy expert. Tell us a little bit about what she has been talking about as she has been doing her movie stumping for Rogue One and hitting all the press outlets.
I would be the Kathleen Kennedy expert who, if I actually got to be face to face with her, would just fall down in like a puddle of like uselessness. So.
Yeah, I'd be like, this is Tricia. Tricia, say hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sarah knows she saw me in that state of shock with Larry Kasdan in the Force Awakens thing. He was like right there, and
I thought you were like looking at your phone, but I guess you were just quiet.
I was just abject terror, not just because I've like so admire what he's done and when he talks, and it was just like I can't even move.
Damn, I wish you would have like nudged me because Richard would have pulled you over.
And it still would have been just no talking. So I would be like, it would have been it.
Here, listen to my podcast where I sound decent.
So Kathleen Kennedy, I mean, they're starting to, it felt like it took a while, but I think it was natural that the press wasn't going to come to, they had Moana and they had Doctor Strange. So Disney needed to kind of focus on those, and there would be too much of a, conflicting to give too much information about too many movies coming out. So she talked a little bit when I spoke previously about the Han Solo movie, that they are going to be meeting in January to talk about the movies going forward. Their next planning session, I would call it. When big corporations, you'll have like a planning session where you go in and you'll decide, what are we going to do in 5 years? Where are we going to try to market? Where are we going to try to open up and diversify? Whereas for them, it's what stories are we going to do? We talk about that. We sort of all know the Marvel 5-year plan. I think we know more than the Marvel 5-year plan at this point. So what are they going to do next? And even, are we going to have more trilogies? Films? I mean, would you guys want them to, do you think you want after 9, 10, 11, 12, or do you just want them to go other places?
I think it depends on the story for me and where the story ends in 9.
Yeah, and I actually just answered this on our latest Skywalking Through Neverland, which is coming out this week, which for me, I am honestly afraid of continuing the story too far into the future because it could dilute the whole Skywalker saga if you keep on going when there is a natural ending place that you should stop.
Yes. I actually would like to see more planned trilogies, but I also think when you tell a story, and this is a lesson learned from the expanded universe, you do need to let a saga like this kind of sit and let people because sometimes your gut reaction isn't what, I mean, I think back to Empire Strikes Back. That was not anybody's favorite movie. We finished that movie and we were all like, are you kidding me? I'm serious. I mean, back in the day, that is my favorite Star Wars movie. But back then, it was not my favorite Star Wars movie. So you have to kind of I used to always remember Troy Denning would write another book and he was trying to make people understand what he did in the last book. No, you have to let the saga, you have to let Rey's journey and whatever happens with Luke and Leia, you need to let it sink in. You need to let us mull it over. You need to let us absorb it and understand it. And that can take 5 to 10 years. So do I want another saga? I want more these kind of forced trios where there's something to it. Yes, I do. Do I want them to go right into more of Rey Finn? No, I don't. Maybe go backwards, maybe go really far forward, but I don't think they'll do that quite yet because I don't think they want to box themselves in to having to run at a future. So I think we'll see a lot of standalones, or maybe I think they said Alden Ehrenreich was signed up for 3 movies, so maybe there'll be 3. Yeah. So, you never know. Of course, I always joke, maybe they signed him up for 1 Han Solo and 2 Indiana Jones or something like that. So he's just our guy. So what she said that ended up having a lot of discussion on the internet was specifically talking about the female directors. And just to go back to her comments previously, she said that she wasn't going to go chase down female directors, that they needed to knock on her door. This is when she was talking about hiring J.J. Abrams. But she also, in those same discussions, talked about pursuing J.J. Abrams. So there was a little bit of a mixed message there in what she was saying. And so she talked in Variety. This is from the article. Kennedy says she's committed to continuing to populate the Star Wars world with diverse faces, both in front and behind the camera. Finding a female director is a priority. Fewer than 12% of the biggest box office hits last year were overseen by women. And this is her quote. We want to make sure that when we bring a female director in to do Star Wars, they're set up for success, says Kennedy. They're gigantic films, and you can't come into them with essentially no experience. Kennedy says that because there haven't been many opportunities for women to direct big movies, the Lucasfilm team is trying to identify talented helmers at the early stages of their careers. And her quote is, "We want to really start to focus in on people we would love to work with and see what kind of things they're doing to progress up that ladder now, and then pull them in when the time is right." So that was the article that sort of ended up with a lot of conversations from places like Women in Hollywood. The Mary Sue had an article. I've seen some fan site related articles at Radio Ryloth, and Future of the Force talked about it. There's kind of the pushback of, all right, there have been a lot of men who've gotten get to do big franchise movies, including Colin Trevorrow, who didn't have any experience. And then there's the reverse effect that people are saying they don't want a female director to come in and screw up something. So Kennedy's trying to protect them. And that's actually it's kind of a silly pushback to the comment, because Kennedy, anybody should have the right to make the decision. Kennedy shouldn't be protecting a man or a woman from. She should or shouldn't? Shouldn't. No, because she wouldn't ask a man. I mean, she would say to a man, do you want to do this? If you know that this could go bad for you, that's always a concern, but that isn't a gendered concern. So she's not trying to protect a woman from blowback. That's right. Just,
yeah. I would think that she would want to make sure any director is to do Star Wars is set up for success. I mean, that's why she's there.
And actually, I have thoughts on this, and I believe this is we know they hired Trank. Trank did not have a lot of experience. He had already been hired to do Fantastic Four, and we now know that they were ready to reveal the Boba Fett teaser at Celebration Anaheim that Trank was directing, and they pulled it at the last minute. Oh, so that's been confirmed in this press rollout. And then Rian Johnson has had experience in doing big movies. Trevorrow obviously has had experience doing big movies, but I believe that the mindset was for these standalones. Gareth Edwards had done Godzilla, but I still think they felt he was an indie kind of director that they were looking for. But I also believe that we know they brought Tony Gilroy in to do a lot of work on Rogue One. So he's an experienced, Jason Bourne franchise. So they can't really say, well, we decided that we can't hire 1977 George Lucas's because that was probably her goal in the standalones to hire 1977 George Lucas type directors and give them this. But it doesn't work with Disney. A director could easily get overwhelmed. So I believe what her intention is saying, that she doesn't want any director to get overwhelmed, male or female, but in how the discussion comes out, people focus on the female. Yes, absolutely. They should be hiring women directors and giving them shots. And they should know that it's harder for those women to get in the door. I believe that Star Wars needs to do more, but I don't think that what she's saying is that they're not trying to do more. It's where they figured out how they got to approach these directors. They need to be more confident, more experienced, and able to deal with Disney and the fans. And it's not about, well, we're just going to let somebody make their movie because they can. It's as Bob Iger said to J.J. Abrams in a newly released interview, I told you you're making a $4 billion movie. And so that's a lot of pressure for anybody. So those are my thoughts.
Teresa, did you have any reaction to this article?
Kathleen Kennedy is definitely going to pick whoever she feels is the most ready to take on the task and the most capable of taking on the task. And not every director is going to fit every type of film. So there just needs to be a female director that is going to be able to do what it is they need her to do. Whatever that is.
I want to also just bring in a point, we focus, a lot of our focus is on directors of movies, but if you were to go look, Star Wars does have room for improvement. They definitely do. If you look at the Star Wars director/screenwriter credits for Rebels, there's one woman screenwriter, no women directors in that's a lot of episodes to get experience to women to do directing experience, which is where they get it. They get it in animation, they get it in TV, they get it in Rian Johnson. A lot of his stuff is from TV. So all, music videos. So they have to open those doors. And I think we're starting to see that they're opening some of those doors to women, but there's still definitely a lag. Even when you look at the Rebels recons, it's a bunch of men talking about a TV show. There's no women in there talking about being a producer or being a creative director or storytelling editor, any of that. They're all men. So Star Wars can definitely improve on that.
You know what Star Wars should do is for the Star Wars story films, the standalone films, they should start doing shorts in front of them, like Disney does with their animated. They do like animated shorts, and the animated shorts are where they groom new directors. They get their little taste of directing something that's short, not too involved, and can also be entered into short fan film festivals and things like that, even Cannes Film Festival. And then that way we could, groom some diverse directors.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's jump on to this last bit of news because I wanted to talk to you ladies about it, which is the interview with, now I have to say it again, Michael Giacchino. Did I say it right?
No, Giacchino.
With
Michael. I think he's got the key to the John Williams music.
All right. There was an interview with Michael Giacchino. And so I wanted to know what you guys thought about his 4 weeks to write this music.
Oh, that is like such a hard task. And I guess in this article, they interviewed him. This article was on EW.com. And he said that he was working on Doctor Strange, and then after that he was going to work on another film, but he had like this month break, and here's his quote: "Yes, literally the last thing I expected I'd be doing this month would be this." I mean, we were literally planning a vacation when I got the call asking if I could come and talk to them about Rogue One. And so with just 4.5 weeks to write music and actually compose it and go and record it, that's a very little time to do that. But I love this quote when he was talking, and he says, So it was one of those decisions where you're like, okay, well, and I was talking to my brother about it, and his brother goes, oh, come on, you've been writing this score since you were 10. You can do this. Which I thought was great. That's what I was laughing at, Teresa, at the earlier on.
Yeah.
I was reading that quote. I was like, oh, that's so awesome, because I know as a, into music myself, like, I have kind of been doing the same thing, so I understand where that's coming from. And so if anyone can do it, I think Michael Giacchino was the right choice, because he's definitely a huge nerd and a huge fan of Star Wars as well.
I'm really interested in seeing what the music is, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know it's not going to be Star Wars that we're used to. It's not going to be John Williams. This will be the first time it's not John Williams.
Yeah.
Outside of TV.
He said he just did a few callbacks to the music that we know, that we're familiar with, and most of this is original. So it's going to be new stuff that we can absorb and go, whew, wow.
Well, you know what? I guess the best example I have of something like this actually falls with John Williams and Harry Potter. When he stopped doing the Harry Potter films, he did the first 3. And then after that, they moved on to different composers. For example, the one that was supposed to do Rogue One, Alexander Desplat, he did some amazing scores for Harry Potter. So he just did some, tie-ins of some of the Harry Potter themes and stuff like that, but did all original stuff. So maybe not so bad, because actually some of my favorite scores from Harry Potter are the later films that weren't even his. Well, for us we wanted to really dive into Rogue One and the actors that are in Rogue One, and Tricia had a really cool idea that we would each pick 2 of the actors and characters in Rogue One and kind of flesh them out and help you guys be able to see who they really truly are and what other works you can find them in and why they are our heroes, not only in Star Wars, but also in life in general. So, Tricia, I'm going to let you start since it was your idea, and you can start with your first one.
Okay. So I just thought we all needed to know a little bit more about these actors, because they're really awesome people. And a lot of them are hired maybe because of their credits somewhere else in the world. And so it would be a little bit fun to get to know them. They're all really amazing people. One of the people that's been in the news the most that we've been able to see prior to Rogue One is actually Riz Ahmed, who's playing Bodhi Rook. And he's been doing interviews because he's also got some other stuff coming out, including his Sweatshop Boys work, which he's a rapper. How about that? He has an album. Yeah. He's known as rapper Riz MC.
Wow. And Diego Luna can sing. All right. So we got the beginnings of a band.
I know.
Okay.
It's kind of
And Forrest Whitaker is a trained singer and has been on Broadway.
Whoa.
I know. So maybe they're just messing with us, and it's Rogue One the musical, and we didn't know. I'm just thinking, but I mean, and remember we haven't gotten them, what was it? John Boyega and Daisy Ridley did that crazy their little rap thing that they did. So I'm waiting for a little bit more fun from these guys. So anyway, he raps. Riz Ahmed raps a lot about social issues. He raps a lot about justice, and so where people might remember him from is the Jason Bourne, the latest movie. He was the social media CEO in that. He was also in Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's in HBO's In the Night Of, which has gotten a lot of acclaim. And he's his Pakistani parents, and they immigrated to England, and he graduated from Oxford. So the dude is officially smart.
Yeah, the fact that he even got into Oxford, I think, makes you qualified smart.
So I'm excited. He also talked a bit about, he felt that Bodhi wasn't a very developed character when he came on board. So, and he's the pilot. He described him at Celebration as the truck driver. He's not like the cool X-Wing fighter jock. He's the truck driver pilot. So he's got a little bit of different background. And he brought his own take to this character in the dimensions of maybe the stress, the trauma of being this person who's just decided to go into the Empire and maybe decided this isn't really a cool job. So, and it's not what he wants to do. So I'm really excited. And Kathleen Kennedy also said that he kind of has a nervous energy not Riz Ahmed, but the character. So there's going to be a physical manifestation. So I'm really excited to see what he also does not shy away from speaking his opinion on anything. So definitely check out his interviews. Have some fun with him.
All right. So next up, I am going to give you guys some background on Forrest Whitaker. He's probably, I don't know, out of the cast, maybe one of the biggest names, and he's playing Saw Gerrera, who we actually don't know a whole lot about in this movie, and whether he's got a fro or not, or where the robot leg came from, if he, met up with Darth Maul and, shared his leg, or what exactly is going on there. But Forrest Whitaker is an amazing actor. I think I remember him the most from when he was in Lee Daniels' The Butler in 2013. I finally caught that on Netflix, and he can hold a movie by himself, like completely by himself. But he's really most known for his role where he played a dictator. It was called The Last King of Scotland. It actually earned him very positive reviews from critics. He won all kinds of awards, like every award there is. And I love awards, but I could not watch all of these award shows if they were all on. It would take all year. But he portrayed this dictator, and just to do this, the dictator's name was Idi Amin, and he gained 50 pounds so he would look like him. He learned to play the accordion because that dictator played the accordion. He also immersed himself in research about him. He read books about the guy. He watched news and documentary footage featuring Amin and spent time in Uganda meeting with Amin's friends, relatives, and generals and his victims. Whoa. And he learned Swahili and mastered an East African accent just to play this one role. So if that's the dedication that we see from Forrest Whitaker for one movie, can you imagine he didn't even have that much to research for this one. But I'm really curious to see what he's going to do with the character. That actually makes me really, really excited. He has been in theater. He made his Broadway debut actually this year in 2016 in a revival of Eugene O'Neill's play. I think it's called Huey. I think that's what it's called. It's Hughie. So I think it's called Huey. And he's produced and directed stuff. So he co-produced and co-starred in A Range in Harlem, which was in 91. And he made his directorial debut with a grim film about inner city gun violence called Strapped that was made for HBO, which probably won some kind of award because everything on HBO wins. It just do.
Wow. I think his range, he's also directed Hope Floats.
Yes. I love that movie.
And First Daughter. So, just a little bit of he's got range. He doesn't just go one way.
He has a lot of range. He actually studied to be a singer, actually. And many people comment on he kind of has like a lazy eye, and they actually talk about that he considered having surgery to fix that because sometimes it affects his vision, but he was told that he shouldn't because it gave him a distinctive look. So he actually has a condition in his eye, which I thought is pretty cool. But he also he has a black belt in Kin Po, and he actually learned that from this one guy who was a student of Bruce Lee, Don Inosanto. Goodness. Which I'm like, wow. Or Dan Inosanto. Crazy. But not only that, he's really big in activism with charity work and stuff. He's a vegetarian who makes PSA announcements along with one of his daughters for PETA and other companies. He does all kinds of stuff as a goodwill ambassador for children that are victims of violence and in areas where there's just cycles of violence and trying to help those kids get out of the life that they're living. It's just crazy. He's just an all-up, stand-up guy.
Wow. So a hero in life and in our film, we hope.
I hope so. I hope he doesn't die.
Yeah. Well,
and that's why she didn't buy his action figures.
I'm not buying anybody's stuff.
Not even K2SO?
I just can't do it yet. I can't.
Well, let's get into K2SO, who is voiced and motion captured by Alan Tudyk, who many might know from Firefly. He was the pilot. He was Wash in Firefly. And I found this interesting when I went to research him, that he has done many things. Just not only he got his start kind of in Broadway, but then immediately got some film roles and did lots of voice acting for TV, games, and films. So let me get into his biography here. He grew up in Plano, Texas, so not too far from us, where we grew up, Teresa. And he studied drama there and won some good awards in his college, and then went on to Juilliard. But then he never finished Juilliard. He actually dropped out and started work on Broadway in 99, but pretty quickly he landed film roles, including 28 Days and then A Knight's Tale. And what I found interesting about him is that he got some of his film roles, he was cast because of the improv he did in the audition that actually made it into the movie. So he just kind of improv'd on the character. So that kind of tells me he's got great comedic chops, and I hope it even looks like he uses that in Rogue One to kind of give it just a little bit of comedy, so we're not all, embroiled in war for the whole film.
Yeah, he's a little sassy.
Yeah, he's sassy, exactly. Now, one of the things you may not know, unless you're a big Disney fan like all of us, is that he has voiced many things in some of the Disney New Renaissance films, starting with King Candy and Wreck-It Ralph. So
King Candy.
I know,
King Candy.
where he sounds nothing like himself.
Oh, milk my duds! It's Wreck-It Ralph!
Yeah? Who are you, the guy that makes the donuts?
Please, no, I'm King Candy!
Oh my gosh.
And then what I found great is that he is Duke Weselton in Frozen. And then in Zootopia, yes, in Zootopia, he plays Duke Weaselton.
Your Majesty, the Duke of Weaseltown.
Weselton! Duke of Weselton, Your Majesty.
Duke Weaselton, and I ain't talking, rabbit. And ain't nothing you can do to make me.
He's a weasel. So I thought that is so cool. And of course, he plays Hey Hey in Moana. So that is the tie-in with him, which is why I had to choose Alan Tudyk, because he plays Hey Hey and Villager number 3 in Moana, which is amusing.
Who is that?
I know.
Well, I want to know, Teresa, you haven't seen Moana, but did you get distracted with the father and keep thinking Jango Fett's talking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. That I'm gonna walk into this movie trying to figure out what that means.
Tamara Morrison plays the father in Moana.
Yeah.
So so it's Jango Fett talking. I mean, he doesn't really do anything. It's his voice. So it was kind of like, okay, I got over it, but that was my first initial thought. So Disney definitely has their like people they like to go to. So it seems like
but they've been doing that for forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, have either of you guys seen iRobot?
Yes, I own it.
Okay. Well, then maybe you can tell us, because I have not seen this movie, but I think this is one of the reasons he got the role, Alan Tudyk got the role of K2SO, is that he played the robot Sunny in iRobot. He's the voice, and he did motion capture for that film.
I would have to watch it. It's been a long time.
Okay.
This may be one of those that I've seen like twice, and I haven't watched it since, but I own it.
Okay.
That's the main character in the movie.
Yeah.
So,
he's the main robot, but like I just don't I couldn't tell. You know what? I'll watch it for research. Homework.
Okay. Well, and when I was looking through Alan Tudyk's work, I didn't find anything particularly charity-wise, but I did find that he and Nathan Fillion, he wrote a web series that he and Nathan Fillion went to crowdfund, because it kind of ties in with Firefly a little bit. Like it's a play on what Firefly was. Like it's not about Firefly, but it's kind of a play on that. And they actually crowdfunded it successfully with $3.2 million. and it debuted in September 2016. So go check that out on the Comic-Con HQ network.
Yeah, and he said in an interview that he almost didn't get to do Rogue One because he had committed to the fans through this Kickstarter, and that he was committed to it and they had to make it work for the schedule. So that's how close it was. But he loves his fans and was committed to them one way or another.
My goodness. Oh, and then I do have one last note for Alan Tudyk, is that he was the voice of Simon in Alvin and the Chipmunks Chipwrecked.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for thinking that.
Which I thought everyone should know.
And that's not even the good one.
I know. So if you meet Alan Tudyk, don't bring up, oh my God, Rogue One. Bring up, oh, I loved you as Simon in Chipwrecked.
That'd be great.
Because then he'll remember you.
I was just going to ask him how strenuous it was to do Hey Hey.
Yeah. There you go. Oh, that's a good question. Okay, I'm stealing that. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, next up, let's talk about our leading lady. Let's talk about Felicity Jones. So she was my initial pick of people to do. And I was like, but she's so, like, is that easy? Is that copping out because she's the lead? Turns out it's not really. There's not a lot known on her. I mean, she's been in some stuff, but she's sort of more on the quiet side when it comes to a celebrity. But, you know, I thought the first time I saw her was actually in Inferno when she played Sienna Brooks opposite of Tom Hanks. And she was amazing in Inferno. And one of the things I've read about her is that she likes playing complicated women that are very strong. And she did an interview with Glamour. And thanks to Tricia, I have this interview because I didn't know that she had done it. But she said that the first time she really started even paying attention to Star Wars was that her cousins actually sat her down to watch Star Wars, her and her brother. And she also talked about her audition process for Jen. But more than that, the first character she ever really wanted to be was Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Yes. Pretty cool. So, you know, the funny thing about her is that she's still not super recognizable. She can walk into places and people don't automatically recognize her and know who she is, which I think is so crazy. You know, that she isn't just seen and going, oh, I know you. But maybe not after Star Wars is what I'm thinking. So,
yeah, and she's got a bunch of movies like all right at the end of the year. So
yep. Yeah. So along with that thing about Ariel, she said that even though she's not getting to play Ariel, she is getting to play a Disney princess, although a very contemporary kick-ass Disney princess. So I think that's pretty cool. But she really likes to get into the heads of her characters. And, you know, so I was looking through her IMDb and just looking at like just her resume here. She did Inferno this year with Tom Hanks. But I suddenly realized that the first thing I ever actually saw her in was on Netflix in the Diary of Anne Frank TV miniseries that was done in 2009. She plays Margot Frank, who's her sister, I believe. Oh. And I had to look at it and look at the pictures from the movie or from the series. And I was like, oh, yeah. So that's actually the first time I ever saw her. But she's done a lot of TV. The film she's the most known for, though, is The Theory of Everything, which is all based on Stephen Hawking. And it stars my new celebrity crush, Eddie Redmayne, who is Newt Scamander in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So if they're still friends, they're going to have to talk about who beats who at the box office. So Wizards versus Rebels, I guess, is what their competition is going to be. But she was also in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I remembered her after I read that. I feel terrible that, like, she hasn't stuck in my head, even though I've seen her in several things. But if you haven't seen Inferno, go see that. She's a self-proclaimed feminist. She, you know, hasn't done a whole lot, but she did recently, she made waves today because there was a small little blurb that came out just a few hours ago as we're recording this, where she was talking about wanting to get equal pay as men do for the work that she does, and that she's really proud of all the women that actually go out there and talk about this kind of stuff. But now it's time for the younger generation of actors or actresses, even though they like to be called actors, the younger generation of women that are acting to advocate for themselves and ask for equal pay. So that's a big deal. Emma Watson has been on the forefront of that, along with lots of other things. And she's younger and she's making these major waves when it comes to feminism. So maybe she'll join in on that whole thing. But other than that, we know she went to Oxford.
Another smarty.
So
Wow.
I think you need to be super smart to go to Oxford, is what I have decided. And all of these people seem to go to Oxford or somewhere super smart. So her mother was in advertising and her father was a journalist, and they encouraged her to go into acting and all that stuff. So, you know, yay for her. And I'm hoping, there was an article a while back where she and Daisy Ridley met up, and they asked Daisy if she had given, it was a Daisy Ridley interview. They asked her if she had given Felicity, if she had given Felicity any advice about being in Star Wars, and poor Daisy Ridley was like, "Are you kidding? No, she's more accomplished than me. I'm not going to give her any advice."
Yeah. Well, ladies, should we save like the next 3 for next time?
Well, maybe
Kind of let those sink in.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did our research on a few more characters, but I think we're going to let these characters sink in. And next time we'll get into our next 3.
All right. Well, Tricia, I am going to give you the honors of introducing our next interview because it's pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. Just, one of those things. You ask someone that you meet from Lucasfilm, hey, we'd like to talk to you about your awesome job. And I met Hannah Gillis from the ILMxLab at Lucasfilm at Celebration London. She was on my STEM panel. And I said, hey, we want to talk about you as a Disney fan, as a Star Wars fan, and about what you do at the company. So we had this wonderful conversation, and I hope everybody enjoys getting to know some other Lucasfilm people. Hannah, welcome to Fangirls Going Rogue.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So we're appreciative that you took time out of your busy schedule at Lucasfilm. And we have a couple questions that we ask all of our guests, and we love it because we get the most amazing and different and diverse answers. So we want to know, did the Disney purchase of Star Wars change your fandom at all?
Yes, it absolutely did. And I mean it in the best of ways. The Disney purchase really expanded the Star Wars universe, and it continues to expand it to both diverse audiences and in a lot of different types of ways. So whether it's movies or TV shows, or perhaps one of the clear, most obvious ways, through the theme parks with the upcoming Star Wars Land a few years out. I'm really excited with how much the Star Wars universe has actually grown from the Disney purchase. In my field in particular, I have benefited tremendously with the expanding family that is Disney. So, for example, we now have access to a really large array of brilliant engineers and creative minds, whether it's Pixar or Marvel or Disney Research in Zurich, Imagineering. We're just able to constantly collaborate and keep on fueling this discussion around next-gen storytelling. So, yes, it's absolutely expanded the universe, and I'm really, really happy about it.
So in 2012, when the announcement was made, were you working at Lucasfilm?
I came to Lucasfilm post-acquisition.
Okay.
So I did enter into the second culture, if you will. I didn't necessarily live through the pre, mid, post life that was independent versus acquired Lucasfilm. And so in that sense, I was really able to come in with a very fresh and optimistic mindset, and also just being a Disney fan in addition to a Star Wars fan. I just felt really lucky to be part of so many other IPs and characters that I know I grew up loving, and a lot of other people did too.
Wow. All right, I'm going to ask the Teresa question. She's not here with us, but Disney World or Disneyland?
Ooh, that is a good question. Well, I think I have to stay true to the Disneyland, probably because I live so close to it. I actually went this past weekend. I went yesterday, and I was so excited I was able to take my parents for the first time. And it just was really special taking them after they took me 20 years ago. And, you know, watching the World of Color, the water show that they have at Disneyland, and going through all of the, you know, the iconic music and stories you grew up with, and then ending on Star Wars and Rogue One and BB-8. Like, it was really an incredible feeling to be part of that now and to share that with my family.
Oh, how exciting. You know what? We missed each other by a day because I was there the day before running the Doctor Strange 10K.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I had some friends who did that, actually. We were supporting them, too. How fun. Popular weekend.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. You fit right in with us fangirls because we all love Star Wars and Disney. And speaking of that, I know when you love those things, you generally tend to collect some things, maybe some items. So this is our second question that we always ask everyone. And if your house was burning down, what one item would you run back in to retrieve?
There is a piece of concept art that was not supposed to be concept art, but a concept artist drew it when we were filming one of our ILMxLab release videos, kind of trying to give a public face to what we are doing here. This was about 1.5 years ago when we were launching. And part of ILMxLab is a lot of the wonderful Star Wars artists that we have in our art department. We were, filming them drawing BB-8 and drawing the Episode 7 concept work, and, they were kind of goofing around. They were just drawing really quickly the different X-Wings and TIE fighters. And at the end of it, one of them handed me this piece of paper, and it was kind of scrunched up at this point and really, really scribbled on and drawn over a couple times since it was for filming purposes. And he said, "Here you go, Hannah. Take this home and don't let anybody know I gave it to you." And I think, he was joking because I was just so excited to have that authentic drawing from these visionaries that we all look up so much to in the company. And that's something that I did take home, and I did get framed. And, I'd probably be embarrassed if I went and told them. I probably should let them know that it meant so much to me to have that.
Aww.
Non-Star Wars, that was a tough question. I think there's a 1 line a day journal that I have. I don't know if you've seen them, but it's like a 5-year journal where you write down what you did that day, and over the course of the years, you see what you were doing the year before or 2 years before. It's interesting. This is my 3rd year having that type of a journal, and it's interesting not only in terms of memory keeping, but really how much changes over time. Change really is the constant, the only constant. And I think that's something I have certainly learned, and it's a really good thing, because part of the fun is looking at the next 2 years and not knowing what's going to happen, but being really excited and happy for whatever it might be.
Nice.
Well, especially considering, because we're going to talk a little bit about this, what you're working on, it's almost like an undiscovered country, right? Of storytelling. So why don't you just explain to people, just in a basic way, what you do for Lucasfilm?
So my background is actually a little bit different because it is very multidisciplinary. I actually studied production arts and computer science, and then I went on to receive my MBA in technology innovation. And so because of that, I have always focused on arts, production, and technology, and how I can combine those things, which has actually led me to be a project manager specifically for Lucasfilm's R&D team within ILMxLab. So a normal working day for me includes a lot of input into those three things: art, tech, and production. The real heart of our mission on my team is to redefine that next generation of entertainment and storytelling as driven by game engine technology. And so this might take the form of virtual reality or augmented reality, other types of immersive entertainment, and of course, theme parks. One of my first projects here was producing Trials on Tatooine. It is our company's first real-time virtual reality experience. It's a first-person cinematic that actually places the audience directly on the planet of Tatooine with the Millennium Falcon and Han Solo and Chewie. And it's a real demonstration of how the game engine can lead into a whole new future with storytelling. So that's kind of the high level. I think that, Lucasfilm and Star Wars has always been a product of art and technology, a hybrid of those two things. And I really enjoyed my role in combining those things to make what we really perceive as magic.
So how, for the audience to relate back to previously when Sarah and I did a recap of the Celebration Europe, and we discussed on Skywalking Through Neverland, and I was explaining to them that the Trials of Tatooine was one of the best things I'd ever done in Star Wars.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that's saying a lot, because I've done a lot of things in Star Wars because I've been with it since 1977. But I think I was like one of the early people on the floor who got to see that, by way of Hannah was on the STEM panel that we had at Celebration Europe. And so I got the chance to go in there and do it. She'll never tell me how goofy I looked, right? Because I'm sure
everybody looks really cool.
You don't think about it until afterwards, and you're like, man, I must have just looked like a dork. So, but I was having so much fun doing it. I'm so excited. I can remember just that feeling of, because I didn't know anything going into it. I didn't know like the Millennium Falcon would come down, or I'd hear Han Solo's voice, or that I'd get to hold a lightsaber. So when you guys were like pushing this and doing this, did you have an expectation of what you were going to take, or were you just, how did you get there?
Yeah, it's been an interesting development. Trials on Tatooine really, we call it a demo, an experiment, and that really is an authentic description. It actually began a bit as a rendering test. We were really curious to know if we could display the Millennium Falcon from Episode 7 at 90 frames per second. So taking a movie asset into the game engine and rendering it at that high of a frame rate was something that we and other people had never done before. But of course, we could not help ourselves, being the storytellers and the filmmakers that we are, but to add the Tatooine environment and Skywalker sound audio, and even some practical effects like the wind. We had a big industrial sized fan that blows wind on you to simulate the jet engines as they come near. And so we were able to show that demo to our leadership and our various stakeholders, and right away it was just clear how powerful this technology could be. And that's where we launched into, okay, well, what other interactions can we make? What other story highlights can we make? And what other technology breakthroughs can we make? So the rest of the experience was really designed with those objectives in mind. And we're just so happy that it has been as transformative as it has for so many people.
Yeah. Now, VR is, you said a 90 frame rate, 90 frames per second, right?
Yeah.
Is that a requirement for VR?
Yeah, it's definitely the recommended rate, and that's really to prevent a lot of motion sickness. It is intended to match what is required for our eyes and like the refresh rate of our own eyes and vision, so that we don't get motion sick or off balance with what we're seeing. And that's why in our group we care so much about latency and preventing, down to the millisecond of latency so that we can give the best, most realistic one-to-one experience with the virtual world that you might be in.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's really, I talked to a couple people after the fact, after we all experienced it when we were kind of winding down from Celebration Europe, and everybody seemed to think that when the lightsaber got in your hand that it felt like it had weight, where you might, is there something that that does that makes you feel that, or is it your brain tricking you into thinking that?
Oh, that's fun. So first of all, the Vive HTC controller itself is really conveniently modeled to it looks and feels a bit like a saber. But one thing that we're able to take a lot of advantage of in virtual reality is actually haptic feedback. And so that would be like the different vibration pressure that you feel in your hand as you interact with things. So when you feel the saber thrown at you from R2 and when it lights up, and also when you deflect bolts or draw the saber into the ground or the surrounding barrels, whatever you might do with that, there is haptic vibration feedback that you can actually sense. Because of that, I think it does add that perceived weight to the saber itself. And then I agree. I think that you seeing the blade extended does add weight, and the sounds as well. I mean, a lot of virtual reality is auditory, and so adding the wind sounds that you're pushing through as you swing that saber, and scorch sounds, etc. I think all of that combines to give weight. But in terms of actual physical weight adjustment, there isn't any in that experience, although I do feel like that is an area of exploration that people would be studying in virtual reality right now.
So your brain was tricking you, Tricia.
Oh, it tricked me into a whole lot of stuff that day. Luckily, it wasn't running into what they have if you get too far out, it kind of this little blue grid comes up. So you don't go, because I really wanted to chase some stormtroopers down, and for me too, I'm not a gamer. I do Disney Infinity and not very well, but I still felt very comfortable in the experience. So that was nice for me to kind of,
Yeah, and I have to say that is I am so excited about that part of virtual reality. Studying computer science, I programmed and created art assets for Sandia Labs when we were doing our own game engine when I was getting my degree. And that's when I actually started to really make an effort to play games and get exposed to games. But it's always been a little bit weird because I hadn't really grown up playing hardcore games to the extent of my colleagues. And so I had my own blog actually where I would document the games that I played and how it felt and what was new, and certainly a lot of that gaming terminology has translated to virtual reality, and as has film terminology. But that's the best part about virtual reality right now is that you're taking both of these fields and you're creating something new, and it's actually a very even playing field right now. We're all very new to it, and we're all learning and we're all discovering at the same time. And I'm glad that you felt comfortable and intuitive in the experience, because I really am interested in having it be as universally accessible as I can.
Awesome. Sarah, we were talking earlier about the Rogue One 360 experience that's just out.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to see it?
I've fumbled through it a few times because I remember when the Tatooine came out. This was the YouTube experience where you could kind of look around, and I think it was YouTube or Facebook. God, they all run together.
Facebook, I think.
Yeah, Facebook, where you could look around at everything on Jakku. Sorry, it was on Jakku. And so I spent a long time looking around at everything. So I haven't had a chance to really go through and look at all the little details in there, but I have tried it. So can you tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Rogue One Recon, RVR, it's a immersive 360 experience, just as you described. And it's available on a few different platforms. It's available on the Samsung Gear VR, as well as Facebook 360 as of yesterday and YouTube 360 as of today. And it's about an everyday rebel X-Wing pilot in space who finds himself in an unexpected battle against the evil Empire. So you get to be kind of placed into this perspective of the pilot and undergo the short immersive experience, look around and see things just as he would. It was created at ILMxLab and concepted and directed by our very own John Knoll. We're really excited about it. It takes place in the timeline just a little bit before the Rogue One Star Wars story does, which, as you know, is coming out very soon.
Very soon. So you mentioned Rogue One Recon. Is that going to be something that you would maybe make into a full-on VR experience that you'd bring to, say, Star Wars Celebration? You know, there's so many interesting VR experiences that are coming out now. I think that in terms of what's shown at Celebration, all of that is still in discussion, but one experience that I know was announced at the last Celebration that I'm really excited about was essentially the Darth Vader experience. Oh, right. Okay. And so that's one to definitely keep an eye on in terms of a really high-end, immersive Star Wars world that we're going to all get to explore. Are you working on that right now? Yes, ILMxLab. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're providing the voice of Darth Vader, right? Yeah, that's my job. I've been practicing for so long.
I want to see how you take into effect that when a bunch of us just crumble when we see Darth Vader. So I always I admire the kids at Jedi Training Academy who stand up to him because I don't know how I would do.
I know. Right. He's very tall. Very tall. Just, it's so funny they've done an amazing job with him. I'm so excited. Well, I have one suggestion for that VR experience, and that is, like Tricia said, how she felt like she might have looked like a fool. What I think you should do is just like rides at Disneyland that you can, get your ride photo after. You should have that set up for people doing the VR experience. Oh, that's a great idea. And it's interesting that you bring that up too, because that is something that's been interesting with virtual reality is the joy that it's virtual reality is right now like a single person wearing a headset, but it actually has been a very social experience for me. I actually relate it back to early console days when one of your friends had, the console and you would all go over and play together and take turns and comment on each other's, playing style, if you will. And that's what virtual reality is like right now. It's very social and very much about what it's like to be in the room and with your friend and the person who's doing the VR. So, you're totally right in terms of there's got to be something there in terms of watching the VR.
I would just left one picture, like when you come off of, Tower of Terror and you have to go, that was me.
It is absolutely. Really, really fun to think about all that. People love taking photos of other people. Yes. And I don't know if it's because they can't see you doing it, so that's like kind of fun in and of itself, or it was always just fun to look back on. Both of those are always fun.
I love that. I wanted to tell you this neat story from the STEM panel at Geek Girl Con. They had this wonderful panelists of ladies working on virtual reality. And they actually talked about, two of the women said that they were having trouble working out an idea. And they actually put on the headsets and went into the virtual world so that they were talking on the phone or remotely. And so they could use their hands and their body to express what they were trying to talk about verbally, but couldn't get across to each other. So, wow. Yeah. So these are the women that were so excited and so
amazingly smart, but that was really cool. And they were like, yeah, we were having trouble working something out. So we just put on our headsets and we managed with our hands and our body. I'm like, where it's not just the game, it's the ability to communicate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that the Geek Girl Con was well, by the way. I wanted to ask you how that went because I know I missed it this year. So that's good to hear.
Yes, I will be sending you the dates for next year because the virtual reality panel was packed. And I was standing room only, and it made me think of a question that I wanted to ask you, which was they had the main panel, the main panel of the whole con was the women of Pixar, which were were all women that worked in tech jobs at Pixar, obviously animating, doing the similar thing, storytelling as you do. And they all were asked what their moment was like when they learned they were going to work for Disney. So do you remember your moment?
Yeah. I'd love to share that story. And it ties in. I was thinking about Star Wars and passion for Star Wars and where it started for me. And I do think about, the stories of Star Wars are one of a lot of guts and courage. And, you take these skill sets and these competencies and these values that you've been working on for a long time, and you're not really sure what you're working on them for. You don't know what the end goal is, but all of a sudden you get this call for adventure. And you respond to it. You have a moment where you can choose to respond. And when I look at the original Star Wars with, Luke responding to his call for adventure, and I look at episode 7 with Rey responding to her call for adventure, I definitely felt like that when I found out that I could come work for Lucasfilm, for Disney. And, it's interesting because you take this risk and you don't know what's going to happen. But I made a move from Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I'm originally from, out to here, San Francisco, California, and I got to respond to my own call for adventure. And so I really... it's this really interesting moment where you get to be a character in one of the movies that you love, one of the stories and universes you've loved. And now, to this day, I'm so happy with that decision to join Lucasfilm and Disney because it really is a company. It's a company for exploration. It's our DNA. Lucas has a 40-year history of, technical and creative innovation. And so continuing to create the impossible is everything that I hoped it would be.
Oh, where do we go from here?
I know I really hope that I think a lot of people can relate to that, and that's why I'm so excited for the next many years of Star Wars content that there's going to be, whether it's movies or TV or games, virtual reality, so many different ways to access it. I hope that message can continue to spread as strongly as it did for me.
So, Hannah, was Celebration Europe your first convention for Star Wars?
It actually was my second convention. I had gone to Anaheim the year before. It was amazing. The first day of Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim, and seeing everyone dressed up and families dressed up, I really just remember feeling very humbled, and I really wanted to step out of everyone's way and make the path clear because I felt so lucky that I get to be part of that universe every day, and that I just wanted to do whatever I could to make it first and foremost accessible to them, during that convention, and to see them smile and joyful and sharing in that was just the best feeling. And of course, in London, it was equally strong. It's just an incredible event.
Yeah, two really different conventions, but both really awesome. Although I have to say, there was something in the air in Anaheim. It was that unknown that was just crazy exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting, the episode 7, like the first of its next trilogy. And now we have, the second, kind of, with Rogue One, but it's also the first Star Wars story. So it's funny how the firsts become more and more specific. So it's interesting, looking back at the Anaheim convention when it was just like the first of everything. And that's, of course, very exciting.
Do you get to enjoy the cons at all, or is it for you you're there observing, taking notes and to move on? We
enjoy every minute of it. So for me, the Celebration London convention I was certainly working it. It was 3 days of putting thousands of people through the experience, and I have to say, it just never gets old. It never gets old. Sharing the demo, sharing Trials on Tatooine with people, because you never get tired of seeing that smile. And I would demo to thousands and thousands more, because it is certainly, you are working, but it definitely doesn't feel like it. I would choose to be there any moment. So it's probably a little bit of a different experience than maybe the average goer, but I hope just as much fun.
Yeah. Do kids respond differently than adults to the experience?
Oh, across the board, everyone laughs and screams, because the stormtroopers are coming, and like there's certain responses that are very uniform across the different age groups. Mm-hmm. I've actually loved showing it. Again, I did show it to family members recently, and they are completely obsessed now with virtual reality, and they're talking to their friends about how to get a kit and all the possibilities, and it's really opened my eyes to the different possibilities. I think you mentioned earlier, Tricia, like there's a lot of different uses for virtual reality right now, and another area that I'm personally starting to get more excited about is starting to do more research in is medical applications or educational applications. Yeah. And the reason for that is, at Celebration, we got to put so many diverse groups of people, diverse age ranges and diverse backgrounds through the experience that it really has made me want to investigate all the different purposes that you can use for virtual reality, how it can really help people who might be not as mobile do exercises without necessarily knowing that they're doing exercises, and how that's a huge benefit. Everybody wins. And if you can figure out how to cater to different types of people, everybody actually benefits from that, because you've added a lot of flavor to your experience. And I'm excited about that. I learned
at the Geek Girl Con panel that apparently one of the important uses is for burn victims. They actually immerse them in a frozen world scenario, and that is while they change their bandages to trick them into not feeling the pain of the experience. So there are some pretty high level medical ways to do pain management for people without medicating them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, using virtual reality as a prescription, how powerful is that? It's so exciting that there is all these different industries right now collaborating and sharing knowledge as vigorously as we are, because I think that's how we're going to get to the best results the quickest. And things like that are so exciting.
Well, is there anything else you want to share with us before we stop taking up your time? Because this was wonderful. We actually love listening to the technical side of creating stuff, because I know people are like, Dave Filoni talks all the time about the budget of animating. Well, I would have done that, but it's too much money to render Darth Vader's cape or whatever. So, there's all these reasons why you couldn't do something as a storyteller. So is there anything else you want to share with the listeners before we let you go?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think Dave is certainly right. I think creativity is often at its best when it's constrained, because you can come up with really interesting solutions to those types of issues that you might face, whether it's how do you render at 90 frames per second, or how do you locomote to different areas of a virtual reality experience. Those type of really logistical, practical challenges are extremely fun. I think the biggest thing for me is this is such a cool time where we get to be part of so many different disciplines, art, technology, production, and many different fields combining games and film. And together and combining all of that and having your own specialty is so important. But equally important is valuing other specialties. I think all of that is what's going to really bring this together. I think that's in Disney's DNA, and I'm just so excited to be a part of it. I really am so excited about what you do at your podcast and on the Fangirls blog. I'm such a believer in exposing the possibilities to that diverse audience. And I think that's where some of our best, most awesome, and most far-stretching ideas are going to come from. So thank you both so much for including me on that adventure.
Sidious, Anakin, Luke and Leia, Qui-Gon Jinn, C.O. Bibble, Kylo Ren, Salacious Crumb, Bib Fortuna, Boba Fett, Amidala, Wicket, R2-D2, BB-8, I can barely keep it straight. It's a character discussion. It's the Fangirls on Character. It's a character discussion.
All right, girls, it's that time again. It's time to get a little bit piratey with our character discussion.
Is it Talk Like a Pirate Day?
Should we do this whole discussion talking like pirates?
Yar!
I don't know if I can do it all.
Avast! Look there!
Matey!
On yon Hondo. Wait, now I'm talking like Shakespeare. No, we're not going to do this.
On yonder. Window breaks.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I'm semi-speechless.
Why?
Shiver me timbers.
Oh.
Hondo's favorite line. I'm semi-speechless.
Semi-speechless.
So, yeah, I guess we should explain that our character discussion this time will be Hondo Ohnaka.
Team Hondo. Team Hondo. Team Hondo.
Now, he is voiced by Jim Cummings. Is that correct?
Pooh Bear. Pooh Bear. No, just kidding. Tigger. Wait, somebody from Winnie the Pooh. I'm not sure, but all of them. Yay. Big Disney voice actor.
He is, and he's in the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. So, yay.
Yeah, it's Pooh Bear. Sorry.
Oh, it is Pooh Bear. Okay.
I think so. I think it's Tigger, too. But I definitely remember him doing Pooh Bear as Darth Vader once.
Oh, wow.
I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
You are part of a rebel alliance in trade. Take her away and no honey. She must have hidden the plans in the escape pod. Oh, bother.
So, all right, let's jump into Hondo. So, this is all going to be this first thing opinion-based, but for you guys, is Hondo a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Or I'll give you another option like I have to for my students. Is he somewhere in the middle?
He's a wishy-washy guy.
And here I thought we were friends.
He's a wishy-washy.
Especially with this latest episode of Star Wars Rebels. So, you know when you tell someone or if someone says they're going to do something and they don't do it, that makes you wishy-washy. And that's what Hondo is to me, at least in Star Wars Rebels. I seem to recall in the Clone Wars, he was more of a bad guy.
Yeah, he had his gang. He definitely had his gang, and he was the leader. And maybe life isn't so good for him right now. He seems like he's always on the edge.
Mm-hmm. He's older, too. And he doesn't have his little pirate crew. He had little Ugnaught pigs. So, he doesn't have all the things that he had before, but he still has his confidence because he's a pirate. He's like what Jack Sparrow's going to be like when he gets old.
He never. Yeah, I'm going to answer your question, Teresa. He is a bad guy that it feels really good to like.
So like Darth Maul. Got it. Okay. I like that.
I don't think that he's in it for himself. There's no other way about it. And he might have maybe an ounce of compassion, maybe in his little pinky, or I don't know, one of his little spikes on his face or something. But that's about it. And otherwise, Hondo's in it for Hondo. And he's going to be funny. Actually, some of my favorite stuff was him with Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars. So he's just got the best lines.
He does. You know what? And I want to bring up my favorite thing about Hondo is the way Jim Cummings uses his voice to portray him. Because, like, just in that last episode of Star Wars Rebels, the Waikathu job, like, just every ounce of speech, it was, like, laden with some interesting way of talking. I'm not describing it very well, but you're right, Tricia. I loved to hear him, and I loved I loved to watch his character, even if I didn't like what his character was doing, because I liked hearing his voice and how he talks. I love his accent.
Now, can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
He's like charming. He's charming, even though he's bad. He's
Jack Sparrow.
Oh,
I think he's cooler than Jack Sparrow, though.
Whoa,
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh no, I know. I said it.
You just stepped in it. Oh my God! How is that even possible?
I don't know about that, Tricia. Them's fighting words.
I don't think so.
I'm Team Hondo. I'm Team
Hondo too, but if you're gonna go Team Hondo versus Team Sparrow, sorry y'all. It's totally Team Sparrow.
Okay, why do you think he's cooler?
Why do I think he's cooler? I don't know. Maybe it's just that he's I almost want to say there's something innocent about his kind of desire to just do what he wants to do. I don't know. I still want to hug him at the end of the day, and I don't necessarily want to hug Jack Sparrow. I think he's kind of stinky and dirty.
What about those spikes?
Sit on a beach. I will gladly sit on a beach and drink all the rum with Jack Sparrow. Just saying. Or, I mean, even Will Turner as a pirate, because, I mean, come on, when he comes out of the water and he's finally all pirated up, I just started sweating.
Wow. Teresa, this suddenly took a turn.
Well, we're talking about pirates, and I have I don't know what it is about me and pirates, but I really like pirates.
It's the bad boy
thing. But what?
Yeah.
The bad boy. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like Han Solo was a scout. He was kind of a pirate too, really. And when we first saw him, it's kind of the bad boy thing, except
with the heart of gold.
I don't imagine myself I wouldn't write a fanfic about me and Hondo, although I did write a fanfic with Hondo in it about Ahsoka's pony farm after the Clone Wars ended. So I have written a fanfic about Hondo. So there. Can any of you say that?
No. Maybe I'll do a sketch and one-up you.
I thought that he would be friends with forever was Katuni from the Clone Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought that. But I want to see if Katuni came back and was with Hondo on adventures. I don't see it as romantic. I just see them that he liked her from the Youngling episodes, the Jedi Youngling episodes. So that's where I saw. But maybe that's because I see a little bit of that same type of affection for Ezra, maybe from him. Then the scene goes along, and then I'm like, no, he's only about Hondo.
Right. Well, let's talk about how Taylor Gray or the rest of the characters are affected by Hondo. I mean, obviously he has sway over Ezra. Do you guys see that?
Well, I mean, obviously Hera doesn't trust him for anything, and neither does Kanan or Zeb or anybody. I think everybody but Ezra thinks that he's the scum of the earth and needs to just go away. But I think even more so after he brought along Pigman with him for this episode as Morrigan, who's just gross. He's like a miniature Jabba, and he always has like drool coming out of his mouth. I'm like, why don't you like lick that up or something? You know?
But I love how Steve Blum says, as Morgan.
Is Morgan?
It is a mouthful to say. I kept thinking, well, when are they going to shorten his name? Because they're like in the middle of this like heated, like trying to escape and run. And he's saying his whole name. And I can't say what I would have called him, but
Stinky Pigman. Stinky Pigman.
And he, as Morgan's the one that Hera bonked over the head with the tray, right?
Right. And he makes a comment about her still being his slave. And I was like, oh, no, you did not.
I would have thought she was going to Rapunzel him again, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but I think most of the crew doesn't like him, but obviously Ezra does. Taylor Gray had some really good comments in the Rebels Recon for this episode.
Hondo and Ezra have a special bond because the kid that he was on Lothal is still part of him, and he was a little street rat kid who stole things from people and wanted to instigate and stir up trouble, and that's exactly what Hondo is. He hasn't lost that youthful spirit to him and that cavalier attitude. What they see as parameters or what's appropriate is a lot broader than most people, so I think that's a fun place for them to both live in.
And I think that's right. Ezra still has to be the kind of the hope. He has to be the not cynical person in this kind of adventure. He has to be the person that finds a way, even though we do know that at times he's getting desperate. So he's kind of keeps them on, reminding us that Ezra still has that youthful earnestness of a hero, whereas some of our adult characters are getting a little more jaded and maybe desperate.
Right. That's a good point.
Now, to end off this discussion, I want you guys to tell me, do you like Rebels Hondo more than Clone Wars Hondo, or Clone Wars more than Rebels Hondo? I can go first if y'all want to think. Sure. I prefer Clone Wars Hondo, and it's only because in Clone Wars, he's a lot more vicious, he's a lot more bad. You really don't know what to expect. In Rebels, we've definitely just seen him as more of comedic relief, and you know that he's not going to kill any of our characters or anything like that, and that I think deep down, he has a respect for them, because ultimately, I think they're on the same side here. But Clone Wars Hondo was much more unpredictable, and I liked that better.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do like Clone Wars Hondo better. And really, in Clone Wars, we're seeing him in his prime, at the top of his game. So it's fun to see what he does when he's in that moment in time, versus now in Star Wars Rebels, where he's struggling to survive and just, out for himself at any cost.
I'm going to go with the Clone Wars Hondo is my favorite, but I see a lot of potential in the Rebels Hondo, and I'll be curious to see where they take him. So that will be kind of fun in the future.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
To a successful transaction in the name of friendship.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up another episode of Fangirls Going Rogue. But you can interact with us in between shows, so definitely do that. Visit us over at fangirlsgoingrogue.com for all kinds of stuff and news and updates and show notes and everything, and all of our links. And you can find us on Twitter. We are at FG Going Rogue. Tricia is at Fangirl Cantina. Sarah is at Jedi Tink, and I am at Ice Cold Penguin.
I'm going to add another at Geek Chic 9, which is Sandra, in there, and thank her really quickly for doing the TFA live last weekend. So if you guys didn't get to join us, check out the hashtag and see what we discussed while we watched The Force Awakens live. She ran that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that was on Twitter as well. So check out that hashtag on Twitter, because it was really fun conversation. I'm sorry I couldn't join in as much, but I saw you guys all interacting, and that was so awesome.
It was fun. And if there's anything you'd like us to talk about, or if you want to talk to us about anything we've discussed on the show, give us feedback, contact at fangirlsgoingrogue.com. You can check us out on Facebook, Fangirls Going Rogue. Teresa had this awesome conversation today, and we appreciate everybody who came and had a discussion with us about Rogue One. And then Tumblr is full of Rogue One, fangirlsgoingrogue.tumblr.com.
And then on Instagram, we have some awesome posts who are done by our very own Geek Chic 9, Sandra. And that is at FG Going Rogue. And if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we haven't got any in several months. So if you want to be different and fun, leave a voicemail. Just call 331-21-EWOKS.
And please go to iTunes and only leave us a positive review. 5 stars, like Hondo, 5 stars.
And because we need your reviews, they are a lifeblood. And it is, I know a lot of people ask for donations and money from podcasts. We just want you to go give us the review. That would be really awesome because that helps share us with other people.
And also give someone else to subscribe. That's what we want. Yeah. Everyone hit that subscribe button in iTunes. All right. So, everyone, do your homework. Watch Silverado. Get someone else to subscribe who's not already subscribed. And until next time. Da 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 da.
Yup.
Yup. Yup.
Yeah, we edit. So if you ever are like stumble or feel like you could say something better, feel free to stop and be like, okay, let me start that again, and then pause and then start it again. Because we edit everything and just make sure that everyone sounds awesome.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think it should hopefully go pretty smooth. It should be just fun to chat with you guys. But I was just kind of curious if it was like a whole stream or not.
No, we edit ourselves all the time. So
we add yub nubs,
Yay, technology.
Yes.
We are will be the first people in line for your virtual reality experience.
From what I've heard from Tricia, she's a very good advertiser.
Yeah, definitely. I'll keep you posted with any cool events or things I know of going. I love staying connected with you. It's always beneficial.
Awesome. I was at the podcast stage, and Steele Saunders, who is famous for your Snoke Theory sucks sticker, he was in front of me and he handed me one of those stickers during the podcast stage. I was just sitting there watching some friends podcast at Celebration Europe, and he said, I've got to go down to the virtual reality experience. I said, oh, you're going to have so much fun. It's the best thing ever. And he disappeared, and it takes all of, I think, like 15, 20 minutes. I was still sitting there, and he came back up and he like grabbed me from behind. He's like, oh my God.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. So my suggestion is all you need to do is get a couple of groups of podcasters in there first. And it will be the highlight of the show. So
no talk about our popcorn catchers this week.
I almost did when she talked about the shirt. I almost said, "Oh, are your popcorn catchers?" And I didn't.